And boom, we are live. Welcome, folks, to the American Movie Podcast. If you've never been here before, welcome aboard. I go through movies, news, documentaries, Netflix series, Netflix originals, and today I'm going over episode 3 of Kingdom. Now, I love Kingdom. I've done 1, 2. This is the 3rd episode of the review. If you want to start your own podcast, make sure you get down in the description. I've got 2 free guides and a free video for you to check out if you want to start your own podcast. It's guides, tips, tricks, gear recommendations, stuff like that. Everything you need in order to start your own podcast. It will get you in the right direction. So check that out if that sounds interesting. Now, episode 3. So, a lot happened. Cho was captive by Chang and Prince Chang, and then he actually gets broken out by Mu Young with the physician, but he lies to the physician about it. So, the physician is just thinks they're just taking him ahead because he needs medical help. So, then while they're on this trek, Cho starts to get very, very sick. They have to pull over, else he's gonna die in a matter of hours. So then they find solace in some sort of hut or some sort of place, and then they start to realize that the queen has basically had a miscarriage due to the rarity of the wood and the purpose of this wood that Mu Young has been talking about to the physician. So there's inclinations about that. Meanwhile, the officials are investigating the queen, and the officials make a mistake. They intrude on the queen's birth chamber, and so then that the official that actually committed that crime was then taken leave, basically, and he was out of the investigation. So the queen is off and scot-free, and now I also didn't know this until the very end. There's a lot of spoilers in here, so if you're here and you don't want to know about it, you should probably get out of this video. But so what I caught is that Mu Young's wife actually gave birth to their child, and then the queen is using that child. At the very end, I think that's what had happened, because that looked like the exact same woman that Mu Young had left with that man. So that's what I'm thinking anyways. And there were several other key points in here. So the plague was actually used for, it was militarized. So it was used in the very beginning. They were talking, I think it was Lord On Hyun and Cho. And Cho was like, hey, we have to actually sabotage this province that's nearby, and we can use these things or these people as weapons against the Japanese, and they'll overrun them. So that is actually, you get some sort of purpose in why this thing actually started, instead of it just being a mysterious plague that is wreaking havoc. So that was one of the biggest points of the entire season so far, and in this episode especially. So I love this episode. This was crazy. A lot of stuff gets divulged, and there's a lot of teeing up for the next episodes, especially with the queen. The queen is basically, the prince does not know yet. So when the prince knows, they're teeing it up for the prince basically to understand that this is not the heir. This is not the rightful heir. She is just using power dynamics and trying to actually commit fraud and just have this child so she can keep her own stature. So I loved it. It was crazy. There was so much that went on. There were several other things. So one of the craziest shots, this was my favorite shot, is the queen is insidious and just very scary, because she doesn't do she doesn't say much, which is allows you to implement your own narrative into it, which I find interesting. And so there was a really crazy overhead shot of the queen, and it was almost viral. It looked like a virus basically, and it was just an overhead shot, and she had this huge spread of this dress, and it looked really, really cool. It was one of the best shots of the episode. And so a lot of this there was a lot of insights in here, and a lot of aspects that are teeing up for the next episodes. And I love this episode, but there was not that many zombies in here. There was just a lot of exposition and plot points that were divulged, and foreshadowing for things to come. So let me know what you thought of episode 3. I loved it. I can't wait for episode 4. Haven't seen it yet, so don't spoil it or anything. I'm going to review that too, so make sure you subscribe. A lot of good stuff to come. I love Kingdom. It's one of my favorite series on Netflix, because I'm a huge fan of zombies. Oh my God. And this is by far the best zombie series that I have seen. It's up there with Walking Dead, but it's just not as good, because they're actually giving a huge backstory and a lot more elaborate plot points, and that's why I love it. So Don't forget to subscribe. A lot of good stuff to come. If you do want to start your own podcast, I've got 2 free guides down below, so check that out if that sounds interesting. So thank you so much, Matthew Benjamin with the American Movement Podcast. Until next time, bye.